Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargame. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Stream Street Day. I don't know at this stage, and you know I've forgotten. It's 240, 245, 246, who cares? Dark and Time, thanks for subscribing. I'm joined by Owen, the man, Jackson!
God, I can never handle these big build-ups you give me, Rob. How you doing? You all right? It's nice to see you.
I'm great. I'm very much looking forward to talking about the weekend, which is fun. Looking forward to looking at some results and some lists. So looking forward to that, and just looking forward to talking to you. I like how the entire prelude, where you and me just talked about stuff that could have just been content people heard. Like it was just,
we spunked our load a bit early there, didn't we?
We really did. just Age of Sigmar chat behind the scenes. But how's the Twitch chat? Is the real question. What going on? I see a whole bunch of them. O Reaper, Captain Andrew, Scrivo in the chat, Yes Meatballs, Professor Mork, Tomb King Tristan. Let's go. Owen down for action Jackson. That's you.
That's me. I don't know what that's all about, but yeah, he put X's in there, so I thought I'd go with that. No.
Mr. Tiga, can we talk about the TTS scandal at the weekend? Yes, we can. I cheated furiously, and Owen disqualified me from the tournament, which was completely fair.
Straight out the door, mate. Oh my
Fucking
God.
slung me out. I actually set myself up intentionally. It was that, you know when you hire someone in on their first day as you as the new boss, just so you can fire them. That's the that was the setup. That was the setup. No. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Owen, how are you doing? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm all right. It was a good day on Saturday, and then other than that, I've actually been building. I've got them in front of me. I've been building some of these new Necron models as a bit of fun, and really enjoying that. So yeah, I've had a nice weekend. I've watched lots of Warhammer. We were talking, with the ability to watch these games through the Discord channels. I've been watching lots of people play lots of interesting stuff. So yeah, on the whole, I can't complain. Global pandemic notwithstanding, I'm all right. You good? You sound pretty chirpy today.
Yeah, I am. I like as you know. Well, we'll talk about it in a minute. I got really upset with myself at the weekend. But thankfully I've turned a corner on that now and trying to laugh at myself. I really enjoyed yesterday talking about scandals. That was super fun. And again, trying to just deal with the world around us, Owen, as you've well talked about, which is difficult a lot of the time at the moment, in a more fun and upbeat way. That's generally what I'm up to. And then focusing on the thing that I love, which is playing games with little fellas.
Little lads. Or big lads on pigs, really, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, before we get into the results, because as far as we know, events-wise around the world, there was only your TTS event, right?
Well, actually, there was an event, and I'm glad we could cover it. But no, it was Yes Meatballs, who was in the chat often. He got in touch, but it was he gave me some information about a 40k event. So I thought maybe we could pass that up through to the 40k stat center. But
oh my God! Or maybe we could just do that on a Monday as well at some point. Or I could at least. I don't want to take up more of your time.
I know nothing about 40k. I know that Necron's won, and he gave me some information about that. But I figured we could pass that on. But yeah, I think AOS wise, I didn't trawl through the depths of tabletop TO, but yeah, it seemed pretty barren. Apart from the ongoing Butcher's Buffet and my little one dayer, that's all we've got to talk about, isn't it? But there's still lots to talk about in those two events, right?
Loads. There's three specific things. There's the actual results. There's games that we thought were interesting with some key points. There's a conversation about scenarios, which I think is quite valuable to have because we talked about that a little bit. So yeah, like there's a lot of stuff to cover. I will quickly say that I was at the event, obviously, and I unfortunately started playing one of my rules wrong. No, I didn't start. I played my rule wrong for all of my first game, and then the start of my second game. So apologies to John, who I just out and out like fucking cheated against because I got the rule wrong. And then when I played in my second game, I did catch it, or the chat caught it, sorry, before it actually affected. So I was able to go back in my second movement phase, which was fun. But then I already gave myself a 0 for that game. And we had a cracking game. I played against all the chickens. It was a really fun. Pigs versus chickens was great. It was a super, super fun time. And I did actually win that game. I think like if we were being like technical, I won that game without cheating. And then also I played that idiot Adam Mumford, the fucking Warhammer anti-hero or superhero. I don't know what he is. It's freedom fighter.
Superhero. He's Che Guevara of TTS at the moment.
Yeah, he is. McLeod, thanks for subscribing. But I won that game as well, but I also gave myself a 0 because I just wanted him to like go up with his dumb Tenebral Shard list. Plus I was hunting the wooden spoon, Owen. What's my prize?
I don't do the spoon. I think I don't like calling people out for like doing really badly, so there's no spoon. But if everyone now knows that you came last, which is the main thing. I think that should be that's prize enough for you. Okay,
I'm wearing that myself. I was super pissed at myself. So just to let you guys know, Gorefist Battalion, which if you go back and actually listen to the show when we talked about it on one of these Monday shows like a few weeks ago, it was like, remember me saying, like we talked about, I was like, yeah, I'm fucking well into this. Turns out that is only the first hero phase, not every hero phase, which I didn't know. Like, I had it in my head it was that from, like, the get-go. And then, like, I built my list around it. I did the whole thing. I was like, it's really clever because you can never kill the hero because he's in, like, a brick of 12 pigs. He's indestructible, you know. And it turns out that's not true at all. It's just the first hero phase. So, super stupid. And it's especially annoyed at myself because, obviously, what I do for work. Not meant to be a pity party. Just, you know, hold my hands up, and it's a good lesson to learn that you should always research all your rules and learn them as well as you can ahead of time. I even had a crib sheet in front of me with all the spells. Like I was like, my order, I was like, generate war points, do the war dog dance. I had that all in the list. And then obviously my other list was cheat furiously.
Yeah, that was like you did that cheat sheet, and then you just got a huge marker and just scribbled cheat furiously over the top, and that was your way, yeah.
Anyway, so that was really rubbish, and I was really down on myself actually. I still am. I'm quite embarrassed, but
I think you need to shelve that though, mate. Just shelve that now because you're not the first, and you won't be the last person to get some rules wrong through. I mean, people play a whole 5-game tournament and they go, "Oh shit, it doesn't happen every time," or you know what I mean. I don't think you are actively going out of your way to cheat. It's just it's a symptom of playing an army you don't really know that well, right? So, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That is my own fault. And also, some other reviews. 12 pigs, far too many pigs. Like in one unit, far too many. Even 9, I would argue, way too many pigs. Outrageous amounts of pigs. So, I think 6 feels like a far more comfortable number, which was quite fun. However, the spell damage from a Wergog Prophet and a Weird Knob Shaman, no slouch. I did 18 mortal wounds to a unit of Ironbreakers in Game 3 in one turn. Just deleted them, which was sweet AF. And I had +4 to cast. I was like, croak. But I was a Wergog Prophet who also killed 2 Tenebral Shards in close combat. Yeah, which is pretty gangster. Yeah.
Was that before or after you stopped cheating? I'm just
oh no, just
Rob.
Just the whole way through.
I'm being a provocateur.
See, now it does bring up a good thing. As War Machine says in the chat, like the difference between, because it was a mistake. I wasn't intentionally doing it. However, it doesn't matter. Like it's still, I've always called a mistake cheating because that's what it is. It's wrong. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's a genuine mistake or an intentional mistake. It's wrong. So you are misplaying the rules, and as I understand it, that's cheating. So that's what it is. So like, I messaged you. I was like, just give me some zeros and let's move on. Anyway, I had a fun time, and I've rewritten the list to just have slightly less pigs, and then have some bodies on the board. But 2 units of 6 pigs with War Chanters, I reckon will delete pretty much anything. They're amazing. That's all I can say. Have you played against pigs previously or often?
I've played against, but in Iron Sun's pigs. And yeah, it's scary. Like, they're where they want to be, right? At least one unit is where it wants to be early, and then they just go bang. There's 2s and 2s in Big War is pretty scary, right? That level of efficiency, and then the extra damage because they've got the 2 profiles with the mounts getting all the damage as well. Like, yeah, it's great.
Baby,
are they? What's the sort of big downside on them though? Have they got low bravery? Are they going to run?
It's the footprint. It's actually really interesting. If you get 6 pigs out and you get 6 eels out, you basically can fit 6 eels in the same footprint as the 3 pigs effectively. Mm-hmm. So like you feel like it's good for board control, but it's not really, because you can get pinned in quite aggressively. Like on a corner, it's quite hard to pile in. Like if you get pinned in on like let's say you have them as a 3x2 as like a footprint, you know, in base to base. If you get like in my second game, I got charged by a unit of sharks, so like screamers. From Zinch, and they just pinned one pig in the corner, which meant really only 2 other pigs could pile in, so like 50% of the unit was out. Whereas with with eels, you pretty much could get most of them in, not including the electric sharks. So it's the footprint is the issue. And then when you add +1 attack on eels, you add them to 3 profiles as well, not just 2. So that's well, we already know that's dumb. So yeah, I would say that's the issue, but it's also a positive if you're looking to pin. So like 12 was completely unwieldy, but 6 works quite nicely, I think, and even 3 fight stuff. Okay.
It's the same problem as like Mighty Skull Crushers in Khorne, isn't it? It is just those big old bases, but at least they're not like benefiting from the charge, you know, because when you have something which is really good on the charge, like let's say some Chaos Knights with lances, it feels shit when the end of your 10-man unit gets tagged and you're like, okay, great, well I've got no rend, no double damage, I hit on 4s, sweet. Whereas at least the pigs have, even if they are tagged on the end, 2 pigs getting in still does a lot of work, right, to clear potentially a unit that's tagging on the end. It
does like but the key element is, and I talk about this all the time on the show, is they don't fly. Like, and flying pigs obviously would be, I mean, Games Workshop are massively missing a trick, like, from letting that be a thing. But it's the fact that they don't fly, and you're able to just do really simple stuff to stop them going anywhere at all, which is why I thought the double movement was so useful. Now I'm like, that's not that good at all. I'm like, let's be real. So it's the fly keyword, like, and you know, super important. Anyway, that's me talking about weekend. Loved it. Real fun. And actually, I really enjoyed, I just say thank you to all 3 of my opponents. I had actually a really, really fun weekend. Thank you to Owen for organising it. That was super fun. I really enjoyed the experience. And I didn't feel like anyone I was playing was trying too hard. I will say that it is different to playing on the tabletop, and I miss that like interpersonal like thing. And, you know, bits that kind of started to drag at some points were like, I'm just sat at home, you know, sort of a situation. Does that make sense? You know.
Yeah. That's fair. I think there is quite a bit that's lost in that, you know, especially if you're quite a gregarious sort of like, you know, you like that part of the game in terms of, you know, like laughing and you know, when you fail with your opponent, and also there's a lot that can be said just in your sort of body reactions, you know. There's a lot of like you lose that fun element sometimes, but I think on the whole, I'm always pleasantly surprised at the lack of any needing to do any rulings. There were no real sort of fallouts or rules issues throughout the whole day. So with like almost 40 players, I thought that was pretty good going. But there is a bit of
disqualify one wanker.
I did have to disqualify one gamey bastard, yeah, who was just cheating his way to the top, cheating his way to the bottom in the end, as it turned out. But no, it's great, and yeah, even with all the language barriers and stuff like that, it is. It's not quite the same though, Rob. Somebody said to me it's a bit like methadone when you're used to heroin, which is kind of I quite like that analogy. It's not quite the same fix, is it? But it's still Warhammer. It's still dice. It's still.
Who gave you that analogy?
You know, playing the game we love.
Who gave you that?
Who gave me that?
Jesus Christ!
Sorry.
Fuck! It's like being fingered in the arsehole, not fucked. Like, Christ!
Nobody's given me that analogy. Jesus.
Jesus. Okay. Apologies to Twitch and podcast guys. Oh, podcast guys, while you're here, stay hydrated. Big shout out to Papa P. Big love to you, and thank you to everyone else watching Patreon. Literally couldn't live without you. Your continued support, like, amazing. Someone joined Patreon yesterday, and I was just like, oh my god, thanks so much. I'm gonna buy some jam next week.
Jam, yeah, always jam.
Like, because it's terrifying at the minute, you know, people are losing their jobs, and I'm like, are people going to be okay with this forever? Who knows? Like, I'm scared. Anyway, thank you guys. Right, so let's talk about the actual results, yeah?
Yes.
So, do you want to run me through it?
Yeah, I can do, definitely. So, as I say, we had 35 players. There are a few drops here and there through the course of the day, but as it shook down, so there were only three lists that won all of their games. So, which is quite good. But the top 10, if I just run through the top 10, we had the Living City list that we talked about. That came in 10th with a couple of wins. Then we had a Sons of Bahamut list, the Zinch list, which was all the Exalted Flames and the Chariots. Slaves to Darkness came in 7th. That was the Plague Touched Warband. I know that talking to Tavi about his games, he loves the big bricks of like 15 Chaos Warriors with re-rollable saves and bouncing mortals and stuff. They did well. Colonel Cabbage, I think, is in the chat. He has claimed the current title of the TTS Mega Gargant by coming in. He was the top performing Gargant player, coming in 6th. And then Benjamin Sava, with an interest in Lumineth list, came in 5th. He literally had Teclis, the Big Cow, Stone Mage, and 30 Stone Guard and Cogs. Stephen Follows, who's been crushing it with that Maggotkin list, came in 4th. He lost out to a Zinch list that came 2nd. And then it was an slightly off-kilter Seraphon build from Alan Joins, came in 3rd. He won all his games. Tyler Buckets, who plays a lot of TTS, chap from Canada, he came in 2nd with a Change Host Flamers with Bellacore. And then Pask, the TO for the Butcher's Buffet tournament, he took it out with his ogres. He stayed up till like 7 o'clock in the morning so that he could feast on the entrails of his opponents. And he
tell you what, I'm very excited to watch Pask play a real tournament, like in real life, do some coverage of it, because he's crushing it all over the place, which I enjoy. I'm playing a bunch of armies, so I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see that translate, and I hope it translates to tabletop like performance, if that makes sense. So that'll be very, very fun to see. Not that there should be any difference; there should be none. It's just worth having the conversation. So do you want to run through the stuff super quick? Oh, not super quick even. Like Alan's Seraphon list, which you guys can see on the screen now. Had Croak and Astaroth Bannerbearer, Scarvet on Carnosaur, Skink Oracle on Troglodon, had 3x10 Saurus Knights, and then 3 Salamander Hunting Pack and a Firelance Starhost. So he's going to be able to stack extra attacks on those Saurus Knights from the Scarvet on Carnosaur. That's what that does, right? It gives him an extra attack. You've got the classic Astaroth Croak combo in there. And then he's got the Skink Oracle on Troglodon, to be able to do all of the Croak spells through, so you can run that forward and then just maybe use the Saurus Knights. I mean, Saurus Knights in themselves are good, but you can maybe use them as a quite significant screen. But no Skinks in the list. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I watched a bit of one of his games, and it was just like Salamanders, man. Salamanders just kill the world. It's so bad.
Oh my god.
Even ignoring, I watched a bit of the game against the Alarith Temple Lumineth, and they just slay so much. But it's nice. I mean, between this and there's a guy over in the Butcher's Buffet tournament who is currently 3-0 with the Seraphon list, and they're both what you would call a little bit sort of left field, aren't they? This is slightly left field. He's not taking. He's got Croak and he's got some Salamanders, but he's got an Astrolith Bearer. But there are more obnoxious ways to build a Seraphon list because of their sort of the strength of the book, right? So it's interesting that both this and the list that's doing really well in Butcher's Buffet is Kotal's Claw, and it's got a unit of 15 Saurus Knights and a unit of 12 Pterodons, and then Croak and a few Skinks and few bits and bobs. What interesting here though, he doesn't even have Croak's extra wounds, but I suppose he's in Draco Tail, so he can summon the extra wounds. But yeah, I don't know a huge amount about this. I just know that the Fire Lance is going to give him some extra mortal wounds, so that helps with the Knights, giving them even more output. But he doesn't have a little priest to do the poison, does he? So he's relying on those Saurus Knights War Scrolls and the extra attacks from the Carnosaur for it to blend through stuff. But yeah,
I mean, you because so quite often the Croak combo is a real midfield player because, like as you say, those Saurus Guard are normally with Croak towards the back of the board. Like, not like the back edge, but your deployment zone, and never really progresses beyond that. And it really starts to affect any objectives in the kind of midfield. It doesn't really necessarily... I mean, it can go quite far, but it's not board wide. That Troglodon choice means that he's able to, like, project that power definitely beyond turn one, like, as often as possible. And that's huge, because that really... before you even... It's kind of like you could try and get to Croak. Normally, you try and get to Croak, which means you enter into his sphere of influence. In this situation, before you get to Croak, you have to go through the sphere of influence of the Troglodon before you get there. Like, but there's some armies, like Gargant's a good example, which can handle, like, the very elite damage that comes out of Croak. Whereas, some other armies really, like, they rely on those key, like, individual units to get into there. So... and it's also a 3-day tournament. KO would maybe have a field day with some of this stuff. It's worth talking about. Although it's fairly low drop as an army, this Dracothale is. So there's lots to unpack there. But always should be conscious that it's a smaller 3-day tournament. And so, like, and it's very much like what I said yesterday about team events versus singles events. Sometimes you can just get the nice runs. So you're like, how come no one just shot him off? And it's like, well, he never came up against none of that shooting. You're like, well, okay, that seems... It's a reasonable way to deal with it, yeah.
I do think that, you have to take these 1 days with a pinch of salt a little bit, because, they would have some more harder counters once they go into games 4 and 5, potentially. But, it just still does show the strength of the book. In terms of, Croak's sphere of influence, as you call it, it's like... It's some sphere, that, though, isn't it? When you go in.
I'm not.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Fuck me too. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. But we got so now what's exciting is that we're in November, which means we're only, like, really a month, maybe 6 weeks away from the winter FAQ. So normally we do see points changes. We're at our, like, yearly points adjustment, which we normally get online. Obviously with COVID and everything else, not 100% certain that's in effect, but it was in effect. It was our system up until now. So you're pretty certain Croak's going to get some points adjustments, like, in the next 6 weeks. So you would think, but anyway, we don't need to bang on that drum anymore. It's taken too long. We've done it for a long time.
We haven't had a Gargant FAQ yet, have we? So who knows? Maybe it's all getting pushed back.
Yes, potentially. But anyway, maybe it's all getting pushed back. That's true. Do we need a Gargant FAQ? Kicking objectives, I guess. So
walking over endless spells. That's another one.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah.
So Tyler Buckets Pearson. So he's got Tzeentch Eternal Conflagration list. Not loads to be said about this. Lord of Change, the Changeling, Be'lakor. I think including Be'lakor is like not like is very, very reasonable, very good decision, but like more uncommon than it is common. And then 10 pink horrors, 6 flamers, 3 flamers, 3 flamers, an exalted flamer, 2 times 10 brims. I can't believe you can get all this in. And change hosts, and then Geminids. I can't believe you can get Geminids as well. It's a fucking joke, this list. So do you know what? One of the things, and again, I really enjoyed my second game yesterday, on Saturday, because I played against all the Lords of Change. And the thing that we forget about, or when I've been talking about this, is your Tzeentch army is basically -1 to hit. Just flat.
Yeah.
In melee, it's just -1 to hit. Welcome to the game. Which is pretty huge when you throw a Geminids in there. Like that really changes some of the numbers around, right?
Yeah, and I do think, even though there's a lot of stuff out there at the moment which procs on mortal wounds, like let's say salamanders or sentinel shooting, I still really think that -1 to hit is super strong. Like, you saw people getting upset about the not upset, but there was comment about how perhaps Volturnus could now have -1 to hit with his new Deepmere trait, and the Gargants in the Taker tribe have a -1 to hit trait, and I just think like it's really really helpful. Like me running around with Archeon, even though he hits on 2s with a lot of his stuff, like that -1 to hit just neuters the output just enough to make things survivable. So yeah, you're right. That the Tzeentch ruling, is it wholly within 12 of a demon hero? Demons get the -1. Is that correct?
I thought it was 9, but at this point, maybe don't trust me at all. But yeah, it could be within 12 or 9. Basically, within a demon hero. So it just means a lot of change is just inherently -1 to hit, like as a unit. As are any of the characters, not Be'lakor included, because obviously that's an ally and not a Tzeentch demon hero. But it does really like stated double up when you have 10 pink horrors, they're in front of reward change, and you throw Geminids at the opposing army. Now you're trying to deal with pink horrors who are -2 to hit. It's pretty significant. Like, yeah, it's really good. And something that you don't necessarily like embrace in some ways. I think sometimes when you're having that conversation, because like even with Gits, for instance, not all their army is -1 to hit. Like it's just the netters or the other stuff. What's nice now is nice to see, thankfully, also when you throw Volti in, all the eels are going to be -1 to hit, so that's a bonus coming in, which we're all a fan of.
We've all been calling for it. We've been clamoring, right? But I mean, you take into account, like, again, Benjamin's list. I've played against that, and like he gets -1 from the big cow, and then you can actually and then can you get another -1? You would get -1 from Venari units which are in Shining Company. He doesn't have those, but that I do see a lot of people putting the Avalanor. The cow king of the cows. You see him going in quite a lot as this sort of centerpiece with the 2 blocks of wardens, -2 to hit, maybe ethereal, 5-up DPR, maybe if Teclis is in there as well. Like it makes those armies stick around. You do see a lot of elite armies which are debuffing and controlling their opponent. Which I don't know, it's not NPE, but it can be pretty frustrating when you've got a combat beast and he's -2 to hit.
Also in some of the situations, you there's zero you can do about it. Like again, playing the Tzeentch list that I played against, what was fun was like he won all the priorities. So he won the priority. So then I'm taking the turn. I'll be like, sweet, I'll move Geminids, yeah, and move it away from my pigs, and then he'd be like, cool, I'm going to eat the Geminids, and I'm going to throw them at your pigs. And I'm like, sweet. Every time.
Yeah, man. I watched that yesterday with the Seraphon versus Gargants, and he had the Geminids, and he basically won the turn, was like, okay, I'm going to move them. So these are all -1 to hit, -1 attack, D3 mortal wounds, and then I'm going to unbind them, and then I'm going to cast them again, and then all of these guys are -1. Like all of the Gargants were -1 to hit and taking mortal wounds, and yeah, when you've got that magic dominance as well, basically Geminids are really, really fucking good. I think that's the learning there, isn't it?
I honestly, I've said it a billion times. You literally don't start a list without Geminids in it, like, and then later on you'd be like, have I even got a wizard? And then that comes out. Like, because it's just wild. But when you can double it up with other minuses to hit in your army, it becomes strong as F. Right, so this is some love from you, and I'm talking. He's in the chat. The legend of TTS at this point, Tank Pask, the man himself, the Pask tank commander. He's taken a bunch of lists over the past few months to different TTS events. Now you're in love with this list, I think, or you said you're now Ogre curious. Talk to me.
Well, a friend of mine has been saying to me, like, oh, give up on Khorne Archeon. If you want to go in and smash, play Ogres. And I mean, I think there's a lovely segue from talking about minuses to hit. Like, do you know what doesn't give a shit about minuses to hit is Ogres on the charge. Ogres on the charge don't care about minuses to hit because they just blow stuff up. So, yeah, I know that Pask does play all sorts of lists, and I think he has been. I've seen this one crop up in some tournaments for him, and yeah, I mean, maybe I'm late to the party. Maybe I just have stuck with the armies that I like more. But having seen it play, and yeah, it's really good, right? And it's cheap. People can get it on the table quite easily. They are really nice models, those Ogre models. So he's in the chat, so I'm sure he'll pick me up when I get things wrong. But I have done a little bit of as per usual, I'm using, somebody doing well in the tournament to give us an opportunity to learn a bit together. So, yeah, I'm going to just very quickly go through his list. So it's Ogre Moor Tribes. The Moor Tribe is Blood Gullet, and he is running a 3-drop Yearlbad list. So he has a Frostlord on Stonehorn, a Huskard on Stonehorn, a Butcher, and then his battle line are a unit of 4 Mournfang, another unit of 4 Mournfang, and a unit of 2 Mournfang. And then he has a Stonehorn Beast Riders, 2,000 points on the nose, 3-drop. Unlike the actual ogres themselves, there is no fat on this list. It's very trim and slim and perfectly formed. Yeah, it's stop me if you need to, Rob, because I'll just ramble. But I'm going to
you're not rambling. I want to hear it.
So as I see it, basically 3-drop. 3-drop's a really good place to be at the moment. I think you're going to outdrop most things, apart from perhaps the Legion builds of the Lumineth and Change Host, and maybe KO. I don't know, but 3-drop's a really good place to be. He's got +2 to move from the Ogre's ability when they're hungry. So those Frost Lords go up to a 14-inch move. The Frostlord and Stonehorn and the Stonehorn Beast Riders. The Blood Gullet tribe, obviously Boulderhead is what we've seen a lot of, and Boulderhead does very much lean into getting extra movement on those Stonehorns. But I think Blood Gullet's one of those things like Reapers of Vengeance in Khorne. It's like good ability, good trait, good good command ability. Like everything synergizes nicely. So essentially, what Blood Gullet gives him is he has the trait and the artifact. So nice drop of the red stuff is the command trait on the Frostlord on Stonehorn, which works so well when you're doing impact hits on the charge. So for people that don't know, all of the ogres, when they charge, you roll a number of dice of the charge distance. So you roll an 8-inch charge, you roll 8 dice, and the monsters do mortal wounds on 4s, and then the other units, unless they're large units, they do mortal wounds on 6s. So what the nice drop of the red stuff means, you send in your 2 monster trucks. One does some mortal wounds, the other one does some mortal wounds. You blow up all the screens, then they get to pile in 6. So you can go deep. That's the thing. You can go real deep into the army. And that is a bubble. So wholly within 12 of the general, when you start your pile in, 6-inch pile, fantastic. The artifact that you get from Blood Gullet, I thought that this only healed the wielder of the splatter cleaver, but it's not. You pick a melee weapon, so I'd imagine it's going to be perhaps the spear on the Frostlord. Any model slain with it at the end of that phase heal D3 wounds to all Blood Gullet ogres wholly within 12. So you get a nice heal from that. Wow. And then you've also, so to keep them at their top bracket, and then obviously you get a heal from the pot. And then the traits, obviously he's got some mount traits that he can use. So the Frostlord on Stonehorn has the Black Clatterhorn, which is +1 to hit on those super damaging horns. And the Huskard on Stonehorn has the mount trait Metal Cruncher, which you hear a lot. So D6 mortal wounds at the start of the combat phase. So if on the charge, when he's got everything going, we're looking at mortal wounds in the charge phase, the D6 mortal wounds at the start of the combat phase, and then he's going to be able to then go in with these big monster trucks, as I call them, and they've then got extra damage on the charge as well. So he's got a nice auto unbind with the second artifact that he gets from the battalion. So the Skull Shards of Dragar is just a once per game auto unbind.
That's great. That's a great choice. That's a great choice generally. Like, because there is just that one, that teleport, that one. One auto unbind in an army. I'd like to see every book have an artifact that they have access to that's an auto unbind, like just like something that you can drop in and out. I don't know. Like, I feel like I think it would. I don't think that would hurt my feelings if everyone had access to one.
Yeah. There is very much, the haves and the have-nots at the moment. But I do think that's a nice pick because you see a lot of people taking the Alvagar rune tokens, which is you pop them and you get to re-roll hits, wounds, and saves till your next hero phase, which is obviously super powerful. But I think you've already got good damage and good output. I think the auto-unbind solves another problem, just stopping that clutch spell. Then the Butcher in Blood Gullet Butchers get to take 2 spells, which is really good. I like the Butcher looking at it. 7 wounds. He's got a 3 damage weapon. So he's going to sit at the back generally next to the pot. But he can fight off like a little unit of Shadow Warriors or some Camo Skinks or something that drop down. He can fight them off quite nicely. And he's got 2 great spells. So Molten Entrails is a More Tribes monster wholly within 18, +1 damage to the mount's melee weapons. So that would mean that they get +2 damage on the charge. So, God, that puts the Rock Hard Horns at a damage 6 on the charge, I believe, because they're flat
wild.
4. That is pretty wild. And then he's got a nice spell, which is Rib Cracker, which you see often, which is an enemy unit within 18, -1 to save. So get that off against a Mega Gargant, down to a 5-up save. Like, he's going to go down.
Well, I think more relevant very soon is going to be 30 Liberators. Taking them down and save, because obviously that also stacks, because those Stonehorns also have significant rend. So like really you're giving them +1 rend, or even the Mournfang, you're really giving them +1 rend, which in an army, and the good thing about this army is it has significant output and rend. Like it goes in and does the fucking work, right? So like,
oh yeah. Yes, sorry, Rob. No. So
no, I'm
one
sorry.
thing. One thing to note on the Stonehorns, because he's obviously got 3 of them. So sorry, that's the hero loadout. And then if I just go through the battle line again, seeing a lot of Mournfang. As he's in the chat, I'd love him to confirm which weapon profile I went for. My presumption is that he would go with the more attacks. Basically, the Mournfang pack, I really like them. 9-inch move, 6 wounds, 4-up save. They could do good damage on the charge. I think there's a command ability from the Huskard which gives them even more damage on the charge. They get the tusks up to damage 3. And when they're in combat, they're bravery 9. So effectively, the army's Battleshock immune because he's only got MSU 4-man units of Mournfang pack. So unless he's getting his bravery debuffed, they're never going to run. He doesn't care about the Battleshock phase. He's got 1 little bit of shooting with a Blood Vulture and the Mournfang pistols, and maybe something from the Beast Riders. But fundamentally, it's like, I'd imagine there's a lot to be said for armies which just do their thing, and there's not too much decision making to be made outside of, like where you're going to move and how you're going to engage the opponent. So having a real stripped down, simple list that just does its thing means that you free your brain up for actually thinking about how you're going to win the game. The Yerlbad Battalion, again, I watched a bit of one of his games and he did roll a lot of 6s. So all the Mournfang, the Huskard on Stonehorn, and the Beast Riders all sit within the Yerlbad. So he gets mortal wounds in addition on 6s to hit. So again, more mortals. It's just like mortals for days. So obviously there's a hell of a lot of output there. It's fast. It doesn't care about battle shock. It's got once per game it can shut down that key spell. And yeah, I think there's multiple sources of healing. I think that Splattered Cleaver, that's the pot and the D3 from Splattered Cleaver. I think that keeps those Frost Lords, the Stonehorns topped up. And it makes also,
and there's also the scoring as well. Can I just say a big shout out to Chucklebutt for subscribing? Gorgeous, Adam. I hope you're well. There's also the scoring as well. So like when you throw like a monster, when you throw Archeon onto an objective, like you've put 1 model on the objective, and if he doesn't clear out everything, then he doesn't score. Whereas that's not true with the Stonehorn. Like you've got, it counts as 10. So you throw them on the objective. Even if they clear not the screen, or maybe they'll clear the screen, but they clear something, and then there has to be 10 models, otherwise it's now going to start to score. And that's significant as well. And I really do think lends to the success of the armies. And I think one of the two conversations that you can have between Gargants and Ogre More Tribes. And when I reviewed the Ogre More Tribes book, I was very critical, and I think I was, because you really see nothing but this. A big shout out obviously to Stuart McCowan running a whole bunch of Iron Guts. Also shout out to Parr running a whole bunch of scrap launchers and a bunch of Noblars. Yeah, all day long. And obviously we all were rooting for the 300 Noblar list. But there's it's often this. It's taking advantage of that scoring and then this sheer output that's based on this one model. And I think it leans into the conversation about Mega Gargants, where they do different. Mega Gargants run onto the objectives and hold them, and then hope not to die. Whereas I feel like the More Tribes version of that is they clear everything out. They actually do the damage and push everything off the objectives. I don't know if you feel that's true or not.
I think it's a massive point on which I overlooked, which is the basic allegiance ability for the Ogre More Tribes, which is that all the standard models count as 2, and then the heroes, of which he's got the monsters count as 10. So his Frostlord on Stonehorn, his Huskard on Stonehorn, and his Beast Riders count as 10. And I did actually watch him win round 2. I threw Knife to the Heart in. So yeah, for a bit of context for people from the weekend, we played Scorched Earth, and then Knife to the Heart, and then Blade's Edge. And I watched Pass win his game, Knife to the Heart. He faced the 1-drop shoot cast list, and basically one Stonehorn killed 3 Aether Wings, which were on his back objective and touching the back of the Stonehorn. So if he hadn't killed those 3, then I think Pass would have lost. And then then he won priority. The Stonehorn moved up, made a nice sort of 7-inch charge, and then just blew up. He didn't even need to kill anything. By that point, he'd got onto AZ's home objective, and he had 5 Vanguard Hunters and perhaps one and a hero. And yeah, all he needed to do was make the charge. Those Vanguard Hunters and that Lord Arcanum, I want to say, on a Griff Charger, they're never going to kill a Stonehorn. So he just sits there, bosh, and then auto win. So I think, yeah, they can't be tagged. It's not an army that can be tagged. I think Adam Mumford faced him round 1 with his tricksy tagging army, and you can't tag a Stonehorn. He's gonna, even if you limit the amount of extra damage that they're doing because they're not charging, they've still got a decent amount of output. We haven't even talked about Stone Skeletons. They've got a 5-up DPR against all damage. And I believe a 3-up save on the heroes and a 4-up save on the Beast Riders. So you've got good quality wounds. You've got nice healing if you can keep that Butcher alive, and then you just get to drive around blowing stuff up. Seems like a great way to play the game, right?
It does, and it's and even if you can drop some shooting down, it's significant to try and get rid of the Stonehorns. And then what's nice is if you don't kill them, maybe they can heal. They can heal D3. They can start healing up. It really does depend. And some of those strengths don't rely on them being unwounded. Like Mortals on the charge, things like Metal Cruncher. They just operate independently of the wound profiles, which I think was something to talk about at all. I think my only criticism always is going to be I'm just sad for the rest of the book. I'm sad for the big bunch of gluttons, and the whole thing, man-eaters. I think there's just a lot missing in this book, but I think that I wouldn't say it's quite clutch commandability like fucking always strikes first eels. It's not literally it's monosyllabic as a thing, but I do think the Stonehorns are they're it. They're here and they're it. And then beyond that, there's just some other stuff. So yeah, it's good. It's really fun, and it gives us a good segue into the battle plans, which I thought would be fun to talk about, because I have a statement which there's no criticism of the event, because I think actually including Scorched Earth, I would put Scorched Earth in every single pack in the future personally, and I'd love to know what everyone else thinks. Lancer Leroy, thanks for subscribing, baby. Big love to everyone who has subscribed. Thanks for joining us, you angels. So yeah, loved that, and I love Knife to the Heart. And I'll ask you about including them. However, I want to have a longer conversation about Blade's Edge because it's one of the newer ones that we've not had in the packs previously, and I think it'll be fun to talk about. So, did you have any thoughts about why you were putting those scenarios in the pack?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on Scorched. I think that it, whilst perhaps it does benefit the teleporty armies, it really does make those castle armies really have to think about how they want to play that game. So yeah, I think Scorched Earth is fantastic. I think I failed to put it into my pack, so I couldn't enforce it. But I would like to do what you did in the Super Series moving forward, so to comp it so that the burning is a flat 2. I think that makes it a better game. Unfortunately, I forgot to do that for this one. So yeah, I think Scorched Earth is a great, especially as a great first mission. It's a good taxing one to get people's brains moving, get that coffee working. First game, and then yeah, Knife to the Heart. I think I've done like 6 or 7 of these tournaments now, and I've gone with a lot of what people see as the really good missions early. So I think you don't really get to see many people practicing Knife online. It's the kind of one where you roll it on the D3 or the D6 and you're like, oh fuck it, I don't want to play Knife to the Heart, let's play something else. Mm-hmm. So it can be one that sort of punishes you if you sort of underestimate it, because
I think it's actually one of the easiest missions to learn on. So if you extrapolate out sort of a thing. So if you start off with Knife to the Heart, they have an objective, you have one objective. So it's really, really like Bosch. Yeah. Like we do this. And really what you're learning, or you should be trying to learn, is you're learning to trade. I eventually want to get your objective. I have my whole army to achieve that. You have your whole army. So the very classic, I'm going to put some stuff here. Maybe you're going to go there. We'll do this. Like you play the game, but you're just doing it over one objective. As you then start to push that out into other battle plans, ignoring like special ones where it's like a hero or something else. It's the same conversation, but really instead of doing it with your whole army, you're now just doing it with like elements of your army. It's like, okay, I want that objective there. I'm going to trade off that unit with this. I'm going to put that So I actually think it's a good learning battle plan. Generally. For people to kind of like understand the core mechanic of you need to get something, but your opponent also needs to get yours. So like work that problem out, and then you can start doing it into multiples. So actually, I really like it, and I think it's excellent for coverage.
Yeah, I do always remember. I think if I'm not mistaken, at one of the heats, I remember hearing you and didn't you and Yanis play Knife to the Heart at one of the Warhammer heats?
Yeah, Yanis. Yeah,
and you said that was one of your favorite ever games of Warhammer because it's just like, who's going to break first? I think sometimes it can get to the point where somebody cracks. Do you know what I mean? Like fuck this, we're just looking at each other, and somebody needs to then go and commit. There can be a bit of that, but I think we actually only had one minor on that, so all the games got a major victory, because often people put that in the pack to create minor wins, don't they? Because people can have a bit of a Mexican standoff sometimes. But in the new GHB, they're a bit closer together, which I think is good. But Gutsman in the chat says, yeah, Gargant's kicking the home objective on Knife to the Heart is pretty filthy, which is true, but not as bad as them kicking the objectives on. Well, you can just either kick it with them and follow the army up, or just kick it right back into the corner. So if you don't have a teleport, then it's really hard to get to. Kicking objectives on Battle for the Pass is the nasty one, though, because obviously they just kick it forward, and then you can only score 2 points for their home objective then.
Okay.
But yeah, I think so. Knife, I wanted to put in the same way as I put in Places of Arcane Power last time, and then Blade's Edge. I think that's where we need to that's where we need to have a conversation. I think early doors it was like Blade's Edge is wicked. It's a really good mission, and I lost my Butcher's Buffet game playing on Blades, so maybe my view is slightly tainted. But I think I'm coming around to your way of thinking that we both think it's a bit I don't know. It's a bit crap, isn't it? Get up
Well,
early.
so I played this the most actually, this GHB, because it's a new one, so I really wanted to like get to grips with it. I played Nathan on it like maybe 3 or 4 times, and I played it again in this tournament. The first 2 times I ever played with it, I was like playing Nath, and I was like, Nath, you go first, and then he was just like, cool. I'm on all 6. I was like, yes. And then
Shit.
So if you aren't aware, unlike a lot of the other battle plans, there are 6 objectives, but none of them are in your territory, so they're all in the centre-ish of the board. So effectively what happens is in turn 1, if you're the person who goes first, and you've got a quick enough army, you can basically run on and grab all of the objectives. Now that doesn't sound like it's a big deal. However, normally, like I could probably push off like your lighter units or maybe your screening units or whatever off of the 3 objectives that are in my kind of half of the board. However, I can't also then push you off your 3 because your 3 are effectively in your like new redeployed area of like you've moved forward a little bit. So actually, I don't score 6. The best I can probably do in that situation is score 3, or maybe like I go super hard and maybe I score 4. However, when the priority turns up next, whatever happens, there's now 5. Yeah, so there's already like maybe a 2-point difference, and maybe I'm up on 3, maybe I'm even up on 4, but like that's a really good case scenario, really. And from that point on, the person who goes second on Blade's Edge is always behind. Whereas if you've got something like, these are a good example, obviously, the Stonehorn list, Mega Gargants, Seraphon, anything, Chain Host, anything that can like just like dash forward turn 1, take it all up, it's pretty much game over. Like, because you have to push it all off. Like, when I played Mumford, I just won on the first turn. I just moved all the pigs forward, charged his whole army, and I was like, cool, I own the whole board, nothing you can do. And he was like, yeah, this sucks. and it is, like, it's like... But then we just started battling Wergogs versus Tenebral Shards, and it was a great time. So, like, it's just it's genuinely... And I don't know what it does to the... I don't think it does anything positive for the meta as a whole. Not like Knife to the Heart does. I think Scorched Earth is super excellent because the first thing I do when I build a new army now is I go, right, I'll go play Scorched Earth. Then I put out Scorched Earth and I think, fuck, how am I going to control all this board? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, do you get the same thing? You're like,
definitely. Yeah. You normally have to just maybe give up on the outsides, but yeah, I think you're right as well about Blade's Edge, just in terms of okay, your opponent goes first, 6 points. You scrabble back, kill some screens, 6-3. The opponent then, dependent on how they've set up and what they're playing, they can be motivated if they've done it correctly because they would be setting up that 6-point score in such a way to try and mitigate the next turn. They could just keep, if they win priority, they don't even need to take it. Just give it away, delete one of your home objectives, make it even harder for you to catch up.
Yeah, because then it's a 3-point advantage to you to a 2-point advantage to them, and then they have to go knock you off an objective. Even like, let's say on the double turn, they have to definitely achieve that. Yeah, it's just I don't know what it really produces in the game that is a positive in any way, shape, or form, and it gives the people who already have natural advantages the ability to like run forward super fast, like an Alpha Strike or teleports or any of those things. It gives them all, and also being a 1-drop, so being a low drop. Is a bet, like you being able to go first, which is already a significant advantage, is already more of an advantage. So I think that was like the really interesting element, because initially I was like, yeah, this would be cool, but it's not cool. If it was all 3 were in your objectives, in your deployment, but you could then delete them, then I think that would be fascinating, because that turn 2 priority, one of yours is getting deleted, let's say.
Yeah, maybe if there was a no man's land in the center, just to split them out, because also the ability of, say, for example, an elven unit, 6-inch move, and then you just roll your dice for, I'm going to run them. That little 10-man unit of something shit like some dark shards or something, they can just move onto that borderline, and one model will be able to sit on the line and cap both. So there's very little points investment needed to get those to go up 6-0 turn 1. You can, even like a Seraphon player maybe gets the right amount of summoning points, you can just teleport a little line of free skinks there. So they've not really committed any of their army. Or you can commit some cheap shit like, okay, Untamed Beasts, perfect for Blade's Edge, right? Scout move up again, bosh. It just, yeah. I think if you couldn't get those 6 points turn one, I think that would hold it back a little bit. Just make a little no man's land in the center, maybe. I don't know. But then, yeah, I mean, going first and going up, it is a risk because some people have got insane output, and over a double turn, you could just kill your army. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Like, I just don't think it's. Ultimately, I don't think I put it in a pack. Like, it wouldn't be like it would be much further down the list now than it originally I thought it would be. Because there's already some good conversation to have about which missions to put in a pack. You think focal points, you think, well, it's quite centered around monsters. That's a real positive. I'm going to balance it out with something that benefits Battleline. But I've played it several times now, and by the way, first time with Nathan gave him the turn. Second time with Nathan, because it was like maybe I think it was after a lockdown, or maybe it was like a 4-week period or something, and then I gave him the turn again. And then he was like, I'm just going to do this. And I was like, oh yeah, fucking forgot about that.
Gutsman Stuart in the chat has said of the two new ones, forcing the hand is much better. And I did actually have forcing the hand in the pack, but I felt that it was quite similar to Knife to the Heart in terms of that diagonal deployment, and you start quite far away, so it wouldn't benefit like foot slogging slow armies. But yeah, points taken. I think it's a tricky one. Focal points.
It's not for you though. Like, it's not like criticism of you. It's a good conversation for all of us to have. Like, all sorts of TOs from all around the world and players from all around the world in the chat. And I think it's good for us to have this as a group and just be like, and good pushbacks. Like Colonel Cabbage, for instance, is going first always an advantage. With combat armies, they almost always want to go second, so you can get a double or get charges off in the middle board, something like that. However, it doesn't matter like if in the situation of Blade's Edge, particularly, going first just means you win the game. Like, it might not be a natural advantage, but being a low drop is a natural advantage, because if a scenario dictates that getting up early is a positive, I get to make the choice to do so. That's really what I'm talking about. Like, it doesn't mean like you get to also try and do an alpha strike. It just means, off you go. I'm very aware of my hands right now.
I think that's why I don't like it now, because I'm really bad at getting up early.
I'm really bad at getting it up at all. Let's be honest.
So yeah, I think Blade's Edge. I'm torn on that. I've won a lot of games with Blade's Edge, but maybe it isn't. Maybe there are better, more balanced missions out there. I think focal points is a funny one. I was kind of the opinion early that because like a Bastiladon can just sit at the back of the board and sit on, a bridge over two object. Oh no, it can't bridge over two, but no, I played somebody playing double Bastiladon on focal points, and it was horrible because they just sat the two Basties at the back, extra points, mowing everything down. And with the big monsters being able to sit over two objectives and get those additional bonus points, I don't know. Maybe I was being a bit. Maybe I will start putting that in now that I'm a big Ogres fan, because I reckon Ogres are probably pretty good.
Now that I want monsters on the board, I'm really going to start putting more focal points in the pack. It's hard though, because also when you play an army that's like really focused in your head, sometimes I think writing packs is also like a bit of a problem as well. But I think I would always include Scorched Earth. I think make it flat 2, not D3. Obviously that's wild. And then Scorched Earth is just brilliant. I fucking hate, because I hate it. As soon as I deploy, I hate this whole mission. I don't know where any of my dudes are going. It's like, are those 3 guys going to be able to hold that whole objective on that flank? It's like, it puts you really outside your comfort zone, which I would probably generally encourage. So I think that's it's good. I'm not blushing, chat. Rob has gone rather red. I've gone red. It's just the light in the room. So everyone leave me alone. Chatted wankers today. I'm done with them. Anyway, what are we talking about?
Missions. Well, we could talk about Pask's tournament if you like, just to keep our eye in with that, because I think we're going to be keeping our eye in with that over the next few weeks.
Can I also thank Freaks and Deeks for subscribing? Is that okay?
Of course you can. This is your show, man.
Yeah. Let's go. Pask wants us to keep the talk on him. Let's do that.
It's Pask Day. Yeah. So all it was, I just wanted to make a note and have a little look at. Obviously, we're kind of mid-round, so there are still players who haven't played their third game. But there are three lists which are all 3-0 so far, so haven't dropped a game yet. And all picking up a lot of points. So the first one was actually a list that we talked about, which was Clay Franchaire's Disciples of Zinch list. I know that you're a huge fan of that. I watched. He actually played Stuart last night. I watched about an hour of the game. So it was battle for the. We're all playing Battle for the Pass this round. So yeah, the host Duplicitous Zinch versus Stuart's Iron Guts, and I was just blown away with the summoning points. I've got to say, like, you see how many casts and with all the rerolls, but you see it on the list, but then when it's when you see it playing, like, yeah, he had like, I think he had 20. So he had a free unit of 10 pinks turn 2, if I'm not mistaken.
I put the list on the board here. So it's Clay Franchaire, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, Clay Franchaire. It's from
not that at all, Rob.
It's from Harry. Clay
Franchaire. Not that. No, it's Clay Franchaire. Just gonna come down on your terrible pronunciation. But yeah, because he got in touch, I think, after last week's show, didn't he? Just giving some feedback about the list. And yeah, seeing it in action, like movement 16 or movement 12 flying heroes just running out from behind the screens and then summoning into the backfield. It was it was pretty naughty. I'm sure Stuart in the chat could give a better synopsis of how it all worked. But yeah, so he's gone 3-0, looking really good.
Love this list. I put it on the screen, and I will include it in the show notes as well, because big fan of this. Chaos Sorcerer Lord and Manticore, Fate Weaver. This is Host Duplicitous, so the sub-faction that means you can't retreat. It's got Fate Weaver, Changecaster, Blue Scribes, Magister on Disc of Zinch, and Be'lakor. And then it's got two lots of 10 pink horrors, 10 Carrick Acolytes. It's got Vortex, Spell Portal, and Darkfire Demon Rift. And we talked about this in deep detail, didn't we? Maybe 2 weeks ago. And also on that show, we got Clay was very, very great, not to speak in his native French, and wrote on YouTube like a bunch of his thoughts and ideas about it, and how he planned on playing it. So it's a really good list because it's not like there's a lot of things happening, which is fun. And if you're someone who wants to get like very deeply involved in your turn, like watching 4 Lords of Change like cast spells was hilarious because I wasn't involved at all. He was just like, okay, and then I'll do this spell, and then I was like, listen, you just played your own game, and this is sweet as hell to watch. You just do your thing. So I'm a big fan of this list. I think it's really good.
Yeah. Stuart's just put there. Basically, he ties you up in the midfield and hits you with magic, then summons on the backfield, vulnerable to doubles, though, which he never got. So Stuart was hoping for that double to punch through. But yeah, I still like fucking Iron Guts, man, in that game. One Iron Gut champion just whirling his blade round just took out I think 9 horrors. He was just basically mobbed by a load of horrors. So he killed 9, and then in the next turn, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Clay went and he cast Fold Reality, rolled a 1, and they all just disappeared. It was brilliant.
Listen, every Iron Gut in my head now is called Stuart, so that's just how it works. He knows he's won my heart already, so we don't need to talk about him more.
Yeah.
So
Clay is doing well. Peter, Pitara Yuka he beat me in round 2 with a really nice Kotal's Claw list. So Croak, Astrolith Bearer, Scarvet on Carnosaur, Star Priest, Starseer, Terran Chief, 2 units of 10 Skinks, 5 Saurus Guard, 12 Saurus Knights, 15 Saurus Knights, and 12 Pterodons, Bound Geminids, and Balewind. And yeah, wow. The Starseer giving the Pterodons 3d6 charge is pretty scary. So they could basically move 16, charge 18, and then do all the mortal wounds on 2-up. So it does the Pterodons do about 20 mortal wounds on average. Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Is it pretty rad? Is that what it is?
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to get my research because this tournament you get so much time to research. I'm just going to see if I can dig my research out that I did for this because the amount of attacks that come out of those fucking Saurus Knights is obscene.
Oh, can I say thanks to Rowdy Rootzen for joining fucking Patreon? For 2 of you today. It's brilliant.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I
Jam
cannot wait.
for
No, I
Jam
might not even. I might have jam, but I might have it on like a fancy wholemeal bread, so I'm more healthy. Oofed. Thanks. Appreciate that. Well, please join my only jams. Sorry, Owen.
Oh, damn it. I can't find my research, but yeah, basically it does a hell of a lot. Like over 100 attacks from those Saurus, and they can have exploding 6s, and they can have mortals on 6s to wound from the priests, and yeah, it just goes whoosh and things disappear. I think that's the headline. And then I did watch a bit of Jiwan Noah Singh. He's the other player in Butcher's Buffet who's on 3-0. He has got that really tough nut to crack, the Blessed Sons Maggotkin of Nurgle. Excuse me. So 45 Blight Kings in a Blight Cyst, Harbinger of Decay, Great Unclean One, and Cogs. That's interesting. So yeah, those Blight Kings can go really far, or he can maybe make the Great Unclean One have a rerollable save, which is nice. So yeah, 210 wounds of rotting meat that does mortal wounds back to you and kills stuff. Like I watched Soul Blight List plow into that, and it just stuck. They're pretty spicy for 500 points. 81 wounds of Blight Kings with Rend from the cyst. So yeah, that's what's currently top of the tree in Butcher's Buffet.
Okay, that's really interesting. I mean, you can't really get around, and I think the Maggotkin and Nurgle list is also a good conversation to have with things like Mega Gargants. People are going to play them. People are going to run them around. So really, you've got to ask yourself, do you have the output? And I think that's also really true, and has always been true of Fire Slayers, although they're always on the sleeper bit of that part of that conversation. You know, they normally just, for some reason, like, skate under, even though they've always operated around, since New Book, have always operated around 60 to 62% win rate. So they're very, very, very good. So there's a lot of wounds with a lot of saves, and those 3 armies as well as a bunch of other stuff. I think horrors are a little bit different. Horrors are just like, can you do enough wounds? Whereas like, the Nurgle list and Gargants and some of those other and Fire Slayers, can you do enough wounds with Rend and mortal wounds? Like you need to be able to bring a lot to bear. Ultimately, which is why I think things like Seraphon in some cases, Salamanders as an example, are a good choice, like Stonehorns and Salamanders. Like you've got an actual unit in an army that's super punchy, because when you play up against those like big wounds, big save units, you really do want that punchy kind of output. Unfortunately, that then doesn't correlate really well with kind of like the more fragile like pieces that play around the game. So I know I talked myself into a conversation there where just some stuff was good and some stuff wasn't, but I was trying really hard.
I think that is an overarching point, though. You're right, Rob. If you want to think to yourself, like even 12 Pterodons, even though they've only got a 6-up save, it's still you need to do 36 wounds to clear that unit, or you need to do 35 wounds to a Mega Gargant, or you need to, like killing 20 Blight Kings is really, really difficult. So would you say that there is less room for control style lists when you need that kind of output? I suppose it depends on where your output comes from. I mean, I suppose Clay's list shows that you don't need an insane combat blob or an insane shooting blob to do it. You can still win by controlling the board and getting them with brain lasers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like there's always the conversation about long range, mid range. Like short range isn't a conversation. There's no point in fucking having it. But like long range versus short range is always really valuable. And thankfully, long range is actually like there are just unique cases. Mortek crawlers, the Pterodon list you just talked about as an example. Like anything that gets teleported, whether it be Ardboys or Skinks or a bunch of other stuff that can move like anywhere basically on the board. Eels are also another good example. They can be anywhere and they can start to apply damage. Like that's always really good, but it's always elements of an army and never all of an army, like which is always really valuable. And whether or not that tool fits that problem that you're facing. However, a dominant mid-board game like a very dominant mid-board game is always probably the most advantageous thing to have, because eventually you're going to be able to bring everything in there, or at least everything that's going to be wanting to be on objectives. That's a great strength of Age of Sigmar. That's why Age of Sigmar is so good, because we all know where each other's going. At some point, one of us is going towards an objective. Like, so that's a really good thing. It's more like, does the game ever get pushed, or does your matchup ever get pushed into a more long-range conversation, which is a problem, because sometimes you can't, like, you get some significant output done to you very, very early, and it's like, can you really wheel back from that? That's what I like about Clay's list, is like, he's really focused on, because there's no real strength in the Tzeentch book for like super long-range first turn outside Change Host. So then you really ask yourself, okay, so he's like really pushed in. That's what I talked about before. He pushed into that midfield strength, very much like with the Nurgle book. The Nurgle book also can't really like do a long range game early, and so the Blight King spam list, as much as like spam or whatever, like it's a super strong mid board army, like, and it's just like I'm going to lean into that element. So there's that. Can Fire Slayers do the same thing? And Seraphon could do both, which is super annoying.
And I think what I've been trying to think about, like, because I watched the Blight Kings game and I was like, shit, how would I beat that? And I think if you are facing those kind of mid-board tank lists, I think you've got to try and make them fight not on the objectives. Try and make them fight off the objectives as much as you can. I know that's quite difficult, but that's something I've been thinking about more recently, just because, where you engage is really important against those lists. If they've got a shit ton of wounds and they're not going to die, just try and make them fight off the objectives a little bit if you can, and then creep round the back. I don't know.
Fun though, fun. Like, I've loved it. I love these shows every Monday, Owen. Thank you. Like, I feel like, and also
me too, man. I mean,
like, I'm loving reading everything in the Twitch chat as well. Like, there's a lot of like, I think, high end Age of Sigmar chat happening here, which is super fun. Like, a lot of it, like metagame conversation, units, how they play really well, and a lot of people are bringing their insight to the chat and to us, which I think is excellent. So appreciated loads for being in here and talking things through, because we're all learning, like, we always will be learning. You can't figure this game out. That's the beauty of it, especially with, like, we haven't, because obviously the Marathi stuff wasn't available. Next Hammer time, how are we going to stop them 60 Sequitors in our deployment turn? Liberators in our deployment turn 1. That's a whole new conversation.
Actually, on that, Rob, there was one list. I think it would be really good just to very quickly skip to it, very quickly, because it kind
Butchers,
of is.
Is
that
yours?
Okay? This would be at Hammer time.
Okay, yeah, please do.
Sorry, there was a chap. I think he might have been Italian, perhaps, from his accent.
Marx.
Yeah, Marcus or Mark
yeah.
VS. Like, that does something quite similar to the lists that we're going to be seeing, right? In terms of drop, because I didn't realize it, but I played Skyborn Slayers once. So it's Stormcast Eternal, Skyborn Slayers. Where is he? Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, he came in 12th, won 2 of his games. I know that he lost against the Gargants. But yeah, Celestial Vindicators. It's a 1-drop Skyborn Slayers, and he's got a unit of 20 Protectors that just turn up 5 inches away, and his whole army's battle shock immune. So I think that kind of big. So he's got a blob of 30 Liberators. He's got another 5 Liberators, 2 5s of Judicators, 5 Decimators, and then 20 Protectors. So he's got 8 Star Sword Maces, so 8 times D3 mortal wounds.
Oh my god, I can't wait for
all battle
people
shock immune.
Yeah, 700 points for that unit. Sexy.
It looked
wild.
Fucking rad, to be honest with you. Yeah, it just kills the world. Because they've got 3-inch range on the Protectors, if I'm not mistaken. So he's got no trouble getting them in. So yeah, it was really interesting seeing that. And I think that, again, the list show from Darren on Friday, I think it's 60 libs is going to be a thing, right? So
the whole thing, and arguably quite fun. It got me looking at Stormcast. It got me looking at some other stuff last night, and there's a bunch of options in there. We're going to be talking on the show tonight about that. So that's going to be tonight. That's going to be tonight's show. We're going to be breaking down the Marathi book. We're going to be looking at the Cities of Sigmar elements and the Stormcast elements tonight. So that's going to be a really fun deep dive. I know Liberators in 2020. That's how we know 2020's fucked. Like, everything that's happened, Rona, Tiger King, like the whole election, whatever the fuck it is, Liberators coming back in 2020 is not what any of us expected. Like, fucking
man.
worst models.
The new Alariel scroll is going to be busted as fuck, and then that's just going to be the cherry on the top of the 2020.
No one's upset with that. Everyone's going to be clapping. Everyone's like, what'll be really somehow they make Tree Lords like super OP. That's my dream, because no one's seeing that coming, and everyone's got a Tree Lord. Wow, Tiger King was the highlight of 2020. Listen, we all loved it. Like, let's be real. Have you finished Queen's Gambit yet, Owen?
No. Anna and I are going to finish that this week. But yeah, that would be a big recommendation. If I'm going to do a shout out, it would be Queen's Gambit, because if anyone hasn't watched that, there is some serious like Warhammer tournament feels. Did you get that, Rob, watching it?
Oh, that's all. I literally watched the first episode, did the midday show, and I was like, I'm going the fuck home, and I sat down with a cup of tea, and I was like watching a study, and I was like, right, I'll go get some Warhammer books. And I was like, okay, there are no Warhammer books in the world to read that are useful at all. Fuck. Like, you know, and now I want to get an apartment in New York that's really a basement, you know, and just get like really fucking weird into it. Take some Quaaludes. Yeah, it was awesome. And obviously now the event that we talked about in Russia a couple of weeks ago, we've got to go to that, Owen.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to be going to the Ice Hammer GT, in Siberia, and have some stony-faced Russians to compete against. It'll be great. Like, what's his name? Is it Borgov in Queen's Gambit? That's where I'm up to. She's just played Borgov once. But yeah, if anyone hasn't seen that show on Netflix, it's about a sort of chess prodigy, and she turns up at the tournament and doesn't know anybody, and then smashes face. Some real like Warhammer tournament vibes going on there. Is it also uncomfortable to say that I want to become like a janitor or a custodian? You guys might know that, in some sort of like children's home, and then just like wait for some kids to wander down, and they see like my board of Warhammer laid out, and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "These are liberators." Moody dark lighting, and someone goes down to clean the chalkboard cleaners, and then you're down there just ready, all deployed and everything. 2 armies. You've been sat down there for like 6 weeks. No food or water, just waiting for someone to come down and play with you. That'd be good. Yeah.
Oh my god! Imagine the savant that could watch someone just play and not really need to know any of the rules. That'd be brilliant. Anyway, Owen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for today.
Oh, mate, honestly, like, it's a pleasure for me too. I love having a chat and learning. Like, I'm not an expert at all. We're all learning together here. So if anyone has got any additional stuff about the lists that I've talked about that I got wrong, or they want to elaborate more, or point out some tech, then please do, because I really enjoy this. It's great fun.
Yeah, and again, if anyone's got any thoughts that they want to like drop us messages on, like stuff to talk about next week, events, obviously, when there are events anywhere in the world or any of that, like, I would also love those messages as well. I think one of the really nice things at the moment is we're all having like some pretty in-depth conversations, and it feels like it's really centered around like this Monday show and some of the other stuff that we're doing. So please do come back to us with that, because it would be fun to talk it through, any combos or ideas that you think would be fun to deep dive. So big love. Thanks to everyone on the Oswald Game Patreon, especially everyone who's joined, who's new today. It's badass. Thanks to everyone who subscribes on Twitch and is on Twitch in the chat. And thanks to everyone on the podcast. Please stay hydrated and look after yourselves. Owen's done a shout out. I've got no shout outs. None. Maybe just read your rules better. That's probably a shout out. That's a shout out to myself. I'm doing that. But to join us tonight when we've got the Age of Sigmar show, so me, Dan, Nathan, and James are going to be breaking down the cities and the Stormcast element, which is fun. So that's going to be, there's a lot there to unpack, which is going to be cool. And we'll see you guys later. Have a great day.